Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Jeff Gibbard and I want to welcome you to the Introduction to Advanced Social Ads. Now, the thing about this is that this methodology works, and I know it works because I've been testing it for the last several years with clients across a variety of different industries, different size companies, and we've seen anywhere from a return on ad spend of 3 up to 48. I know the methodology works. Now, I'm not going to get into every single one of the networks because that course would take 10 to 15 hours and I'd have to charge an immense amount of money for it. Instead, I want to teach you the theory and ideas behind how to run successful social media ads. And the thing is that many of the different networks are going to operate in very much the same way as Facebook and Instagram. And I'm going to use Facebook and Instagram as the sort of the substrate to talk about how to run successful social media ads. So as you go through this, if you find yourself getting stuck, please go through it again and give it a try again, because I've tried to make this a very straightforward, very easy to understand way of running successful social ads. If you do run into some trouble and you can't understand something I said, please just shoot me an email at the address right here. And I will see you on the other side of the course, and hopefully you'll get a lot out of this course.
All right, so here we go. The introduction to social advertising. By the end of this, you're going to know how to basically absolutely crush it at social ads. So kind of an important point about like what this is all about. People ask me all the time, like clients, and they're like, well, does this work for this industry? Does this work for this? This methodology works for like literally across the board. It's completely agnostic to industry. It's just the right way to run ads. It doesn't matter what kind of industry you're in or what you do, or even what kind of campaign you're running. The approach of running the ads like this, it works across the board. And when you're running ads, and I guess even in the instances where it doesn't work, it's actually working within the framework. So for instance, I'm going to be showing you full funnel social advertising. And in the instances where a full funnel does not work, it's okay because we're testing that against a kind of like just targeting individual aspects of the funnel, maybe just going directly to the conversion. So we'll always be testing, and that's a big kind of factor in this whole thing. So this works across the board. So things we're going to cover, we'll do the beginner's point, and then we'll do Facebook and Instagram. We'll talk about the funnel. We'll re-review DIMCASAS, which we'll get into there, and then optimization. So advertising, important point about any social advertising is that there's a number of different business objectives that this can help with. Most people will just jump straight to kind of conversions, or they'll think just about awareness, but there's a bunch of different things you can do. You can build brand awareness with things like video ads or engagement posts, things like that. You can generate more leads and sales when you're doing traffic campaigns, and more appropriately conversion campaigns where the conversion pixel fires and then those ads get smarter and smarter. You can recruit top talent. People forget that recruiting is basically just marketing for a different conversion. You're just trying to get people to fill out an application or be interested in working for your company. So recruiting is actually a really, really good use of social advertising. If you have kind of new customer service stuff that's happening, like, so for instance, if you have really negative reviews, or if there's something that people are consistently complaining about your product or service, you can use social ads to make sure that you get in front of your existing customers and lookalike audiences to let them know about the steps you're taking to improve customer service. Like a great example would be like Comcast, right? Comcast could use social advertising to let all the people in their area know about how they're improving and updating their customer service, since that's a sore point for them. So you can use it for that as well. And then you can use it to learn more about your customers. So you put stuff out there, you ask them questions and amplify that. And that's a way of getting feedback. So you could do, polls, you could do, when you're putting out different types of blog posts, depending upon which ones they click on and which is the highest click-through rate and the lowest cost per click, that gives you some information about what your customers are actually interested in. So the reasons why we advertise on social media is mostly that specifically on social media versus like paid search or on billboards or anything else, is that that's where people's attention is. People are spending an enormous amount of time on social networks. I don't have the stats right in front of me, but it's a lot. There are the stats, right? Across basically everything, people are using social media at a very high rate. But I think we all know that, so I don't think there's a real need to dig in and make that case. But like, we use social media a lot. It's just about where people are spending their time. And one of the important things is because organic reach is in decline, it really makes a lot of sense to advertise on social networks, which is why the sites that I think have the highest value on social media are the ones in which you can advertise, and specifically the ones that you can advertise at the lowest rate, because that's the one where you have the highest likelihood of getting in front of your exact right audience. And just the illustrations I showed the last time I did this was that in Philadelphia, women over 65 who like 50 Cent, there are 3,400 people. So there's an audience for everything. There's an audience for men 45 to 65 in Philly who like arthropods on Pinterest, and that's 12,000 to 14,000 people. So a lot of people for that. 39-year-old men in the United States who like Spider-Man, look at that, 600,000 of us, although I'm their leader. So bottom line is that there's basically an audience for everything. It works out to like 72% of all US adults are using some form of social media and are reachable using the most popular ones. These are two of the most popular ones, Facebook and Instagram, which is why we're probably going to spend our time looking at those first and foremost. The way that I tend to rank them is Facebook and Instagram first. Next after that would typically be YouTube if you have video content. If you don't, obviously that's not going to work. If you're an e-commerce business, Pinterest has a lot of value there. Or if your audience tend to skew women, Pinterest is a really great place to be. Twitter advertising, not necessarily a great place to be. Usually doesn't work out super well. LinkedIn can be really, really valuable, but it can be very, very expensive. And things like Snapchat or Quora or Reddit, that's dependent upon the type of audience you have and your budget. And usually those are the ones that you start to explore once you've kind of exhausted your Facebook and Instagram, and whatever your next tier one would be. The way that I tend to look at the value of a particular network and whether or not you should be using that for social advertising is that you have to understand what is the objective you're trying to do, then kind of multiply that or look at that as a factor of how well can I actually target that group, and then the cost. So as an example, if I wanted people to watch my video and I wanted to target a very specific audience at a low cost, Facebook and YouTube are my absolute best bet because I'm going to be able to do video views. I'm going to be able to target very, very specifically, like on YouTube, especially because they have both demographic targeting, interest and topic categories, as well as keywords. That's a place where the targeting is absolutely extraordinary. And then the cost, because it's a video view, the costs are always going to be very low. But even if you did a video view on LinkedIn, it's going to be much more expensive than if you did it on Facebook and YouTube typically. So this is kind of how I look at the overarching value. And that's why I rank the social sites that I use in the way that I do, is because those factors kind of against each other work out to kind of that ranking. So this is why I typically do it in this order. All right. So some of the things that you would need to actually, I think, run successful ads, first and foremost, I think, are videos. I think video is the single most important thing that you can have in social advertising. But beyond that, I think blog posts can be super, super helpful because when we get to the funnel, you'll see that those are two assets that you can use, pretty much across the entire funnel. Whereas any other types of assets, like I guess images or graphic design or ebooks or lead magnets, things like that, they're helpful, but they're not as, across the entire funnel. But these are some other things that I think are really helpful, especially as you get to become a more sophisticated marketer. And I'm going to show you a graphic later that is the entire integrated marketing, like a visualization of completely integrated marketing. And it incorporates all these different things because what you're looking to do is have it so that no matter where you touch somebody as a prospect or an audience, that you're able to then move them into this kind of machine where you're able to continue touching them over time and putting useful information in front of them. So like a lead magnet would be great because if you first capture their attention, you get them to your website and you give them a lead magnet, like a PDF of 5 reasons for X, Y, and Z. You then get their email address. Once you have the email address, you're able to hit them with email drip sequences, one-to-one emails. You can take that email list and upload it to Facebook and Twitter and all the different sites, which I'll get to later. So it has a real value once you have that to kind of continue the conversation. Webinars can be a really great way, sort of in the middle of the funnel, to start talking about why kind of showcasing your knowledge and things like that. Testimonials help to get people over the hump of conversion. So all of these different things can be really helpful in supporting your goals as a social media marketer, and specifically as an advertiser. But the two most important, again, are videos and blog posts. All right, so Facebook and Instagram. The structure inside of Facebook and Instagram works like this, that essentially ads roll up into ad sets and ad sets roll up into campaigns. So the campaign is your objective, and you can do a campaign optimized budget now which basically will then optimize your budget across all of your ad sets and your ads. So it kind of takes the budgeting up one level. But you can also do your budgeting inside of ad sets. But primarily what the ad sets are about are your audience and your placement. So it's where you're going to say, who am I targeting and where am I going to be targeting? Is it on Instagram, on Facebook, Facebook right-hand rail, Facebook audience network, all those sorts of places. So you can't do the budget in both. Like you can't do ad set budget and campaign budget. You can only do one or the other. I typically will do ad set budgeting. The only difference would be if I'm using the same audience in multiple ad sets, I will then do campaign optimization. And I'll explain more of that later. And then the ad itself is your media, your headline, your ad copy, your call to action. A lot of people ask questions about like, what is the best type of ad? Is it a carousel? Is it, should I be doing dynamic creative? Should I be doing a single image, a single video? There's no right answer. I guess if there was a right answer, it would be test it. You test every single potential option. I will say anecdotally, I've found that the dynamic creative option that they have inside of Facebook, which is one that allows you to select 5 headlines, 5 different images, or maybe it might even be more than that, 5 different calls to action. So it allows you to test a bunch of different variables. It's something that AdEspresso used to do, but now Facebook has it natively as part of what they do. That gives the algorithm the ability to try out all of the different combinations, but you have to make sure that if you're going to do that, that all of the combinations would work together. Otherwise, you get some weird and wonky ad combinations. So the ad itself is going to be your video, your image. Always use high quality images whenever possible. Try to use images that capture people's attention. Don't do something that's, generic or boring or just a standard stock photo. Like any of that corporate stock photo shit, don't use it. Find something that's interesting. Like I saw this one Facebook advertiser that was saying that the number one ad that they had been running was this ad of a woman getting hit with a water balloon. Like it wasn't like a video. It was just it was like the moment that the water balloon hit her face. So she's like doused in water and like you can just see, kind of her face imprinted from the water balloon, and it just totally catches your attention. So looking for something that's different and unique will stop people from scrolling more likely than something that gets kind of ignored because it's boring. Don't underestimate the importance of headlines and ad copy. One of the things that you'll probably notice if you start looking at more of the Facebook ads that are coming through your feed is that the actual copy of the ad, it's not like 15 words like what some people would recommend in the past. It's actually like sometimes like 200 or 300 words in the copy of the ad. So you'll see that there's like the click read more sort of thing. And then there's this whole amount of copy. There's emojis in it. It's telling a whole story. So that's kind of, I wouldn't say best practice, but you're going to start to see it more and more. And it's mostly because if you tell a good story in that ad, you have a higher likelihood that somebody's going to kind of go through the entire thing. If you've caught their attention and you get them into the ad and they start to read it and it's really well written copy, you could probably get them to read through it. So there's probably a sweet spot there. I'm not exactly sure what the total number of words would be. But it's more than sort of the short, punchy thing that everyone thinks works. The headline should be short and punchy. The first few sentences before the kind of read more are important because they're going to capture your attention. But the shortness of the ad copy, it doesn't need to be so short. You can actually tell a little bit in there. And then the call to action button, just make sure you're picking one that's relevant. And if you can't decide between like shop now and learn more or book now and shop now or whatever, just test them. That's always it. The answer is always just test it. So here's how I run some campaigns. Essentially, you have these different objectives. These are the ones that I am typically using. And here's why. The one thing that you'll notice about each of these is that these are ones that I can remarket to. My big thing is if you run an ad that you cannot remarket to, it's basically like, it's like skywriting. Like there's absolutely no real long-term benefit to it. So every ad that I run has a purpose. I think I even have that in a slide coming up. But like video views, I can retarget anyone that's watched more than 3 seconds. Page post engagements, I can remarket to anybody who's engaged with my page or any of its posts over a period of time. Traffic, if you have the pixel on the site, you can remarket to. Conversion, same thing. And then lead generation. Anyone that fills it out, doesn't fill it out, engages with it, all of those things are things you can remarket to. So these are ones I use regularly. These I use when the situation calls for it because obviously not everyone has an app. So installs and engagements, not particularly useful. product catalogs, they're awesome if you have an e-commerce business that you're working with. They can be a little bit of a pain in the ass to set up, but a really good example, if you want to see a company that does just a super kick-ass job of using product catalog ads, just go and visit the Adidas website, maybe like them on Facebook, and start getting Adidas Facebook ads. They're just crushing me with how awesome their sneakers are, and they just keep hitting me with parts of their product catalog based upon what I've looked at before. And event responses can be really, really great at actually getting people to come to your event. I've found in meetups that we can get it down to anywhere from like $1.50 to $3 in RSVP, and something like 20% of all the people at RSVP actually show up. But if you have a high value event, I did an event with a company that does cannabis related events, and we were able to get a crap ton of people to their event at a relatively low cost. Their return on ad spend was pretty outstanding. I almost never use page likes. I think they're completely useless. If you're going to do a page likes, typically I look at page likes as if you don't have any page likes, it kind of looks like you don't really have a business. So I like them for social proof, basically. So if you want to try and get your page likes over 1,000, generally I don't think people care, right? Like I think page likes are kind of passe. I don't like very many pages anymore. I know a lot of people that don't like pages anymore because that's just going to be part and parcel of getting ads targeted at you. And at the end of the day, if you're trying to target people, there are 100 other ways that are more valuable than targeting the people that have liked your page. I'll give one exception. The one time where I will use it is I will run a page like ad campaign to people who have converted. So like, let's say I get somebody to come to my lead magnet, they download the lead magnet and they hit the thank you page. I'll retarget people who have hit the thank you page, but who don't already like my page. So it's a way of getting very, very, very targeted likes of people who have actually become customers. That's the only one that I would encourage. The only other one I talk about, but I definitely don't encourage, is like if you want to target like Algeria or Albania with page likes, you could rack up your page like numbers, but then your page is totally useless and it's just not a good idea. Brand awareness is totally useless. If you're going to try and get brand awareness with people, just use videos or page post engagements because there's just more value there. And then reach, I'm not even sure if that's still an option. It might be an option. I think it is. But if your goal is reach, then I don't think that's the best way. I think your best bet is still video views there. So those are the campaigns. Here are the different audiences. You have your saved, you have your custom, and you have your lookalike. Your saved audience are your demographics. They're like going to Facebook and saying, hey, I want to talk to people who are 18 to 25, who like tacos, that live in New York City, and who are a fan of Eddie Murphy, right? Like you can build that audience. Custom audience is basically all of the other types of audiences that Facebook allows, which are things like uploading your email list or your customer list. It's things like people who've engaged with it. It's the engagement audiences. So people who have watched a video that have engaged with your Instagram profile or your Facebook profile, people who have engaged with what they're now calling Instant Page, I believe, which is what used to be called Canvases, people who've engaged with a lead form. So those are all of your custom audiences. And those are some of, I think, the highest value audiences you can use as the custom audiences. Then what you can do is you can actually make a lookalike audience based on any of the custom audiences. So if you have, for instance, people who have visited your website that went to the lead magnet page, download the lead magnet, and hit the thank you page, you can create a custom audience of people who have been to the lead magnet page but didn't convert. You can have a page of people who've been to the lead magnet page and did convert. You can have a lookalike, you can have a lookalike of people who visited your website but haven't gone to the lead form or the conversion page. So like there's just a bazillion ways you can do. You can do it by page. You can do it by people who are similar to your email list. You can do it by people who are similar to those that watched 50% of your video. So like if you're looking for people who have a high propensity to watch a video for a long period of time, run a video view campaign for like a month, rack up those views as high as you can, and then when you create a lookalike audience of people who have watched 50% of the video, because what you're getting there is all of the people that watched 50% of that video, you're looking for people who are similar to those that watched 50% of the video. So the lookalike can be really, really helpful. It ranges from 1% to 10%. I typically try to stay in the 1% to 5% range. So I'll do 1, 3, and 5, or I'll just do 2 and 4, depending on how many audiences I'm doing. And that'll just be if I want, like, for instance, if you have a custom audience that's like 300 people, it's probably going to be a little too small for you to even target and add to on Facebook, because I think the minimum is 1,000 names on a list. And if you don't have enough of them, then oftentimes it's going to be really difficult for you to run a campaign at all, or spend any of your budget, or reach people at all. So what you do is you take that small custom audience and you create a lookalike of it, and Facebook will find that 1 to 5% of people that are similar in the country that you're targeting, and you can bundle those two audiences together and run the campaign with those audiences. Ads. So a bunch of different types: story, canvas, lead form, etc. Typically, if you're kind of going from top to bottom here, you're looking at the funnel kind of in order. So canvas and lead form are generally going to be your best bets for conversions. Stories can be really good. Instagram stories specifically can be really good for certain types of ads. Ideally, you want to try and go back to back to back on them. I believe they have an option where you can do like 2 or 3 of them in a row. And you want to try and tell a story there. But again, that's very reliant on your content marketing ability. You have to be able to tell a story in that vertical video format and get people to swipe up, or else it's kind of useless. It can be okay, I guess, for brand awareness, but I'm not exactly sure whether or not you can remarket to people who have watched a video on your story. I don't think you can. But these are all the different ad formats, and the right one for any campaign is when you test it, and that one wins. I've had campaigns where a carousel beats a single image. I've had ones where a single image or multiple videos will beat a carousel. I've had ones where canvases work. I've had ones where, a single image with a big, with a lot of ad copy will beat a lead form or beat a canvas. So you just have to test them time and time again. Typically, the funnel that I like to run will have like a video at the top, a traffic post in the middle, and then some sort of a carousel, canvas, or lead form as the conversion at the very end. All right, so now you've got all that. This is the part where I advise you never to hit the boost button, no matter how much or how little a client is paying you, or how much or how little you're spending. Never push the boost button. It's basically a donate to Facebook button. It's really, so boosting a post may help you get more people to react, share, and comment on it. I mean, they've added more options because they really want to make it like, ads for dummies. They want you to just hand over your money as quickly as possible. So they're trying to make it really fast and easy for you to amplify, but it is definitely not the best way. You should always be going into the ad editor because you can't trust this guy. So what I think of it as is that it is the minimum viable advertisement on Facebook, and it's not the right way to do it. There's 100 other ways that you could do it, primarily going into the ad editor and running things, but or using other software to do it. But I recommend going into the business and ad manager and doing it there. So back to what I said at the beginning, isolated, untested ads suck, which means that you never go just straight with the ad. You always have to be testing. And the way most campaigns work is that people will run one ad inside of an ad set inside of a campaign. So it's like basically if you were going to play darts and you got one throw and you had to hit a bullseye, or at least close to it. I prefer to go a different route where I create a lot more opportunities for myself. So I will, inside of any campaign, generally do multiple ad sets, and inside of those ad sets, I'll typically do multiple ads. The way that I do it, I don't do 2. I typically will do a lot more. I'll do generally, we'll get to that in a minute. This is probably the most important one, leads and sales for people. So this is the one to focus on most, because the rest of these are pretty straightforward. I mean, I guess recruit top talent is about the same as generate more leads and sales, because they're both about a conversion. But building brand awareness, amplifying customer service, and learning more, these are things that are indirectly going to impact your bottom line. But generating more leads and sales and recruiting top talent, those are kind of very, very direct and very, very measurable. They're conversions. And this is the one that people actually want. When they hire us to create Facebook ads and social ads in general, they want us to produce leads and sales and do it with less money than what they're spending. They want to make back a bigger return on what they spend. So the way that I look at conversions, all these different types of them, is that what most people do wrong is that they just are in like a super hurry, right? Like right out of the gate, they're like trying to get themselves in there and convert and get the sale. But people can't buy from you if they don't know who you are. So oftentimes the problem with these conversion ads that many of these companies will run is they come right out of the gate and they're like, hey, buy from us. And people have no idea who you are. And unless your product is low cost enough with a, really obvious feature and benefit, it's going to be really difficult. Like I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I just bought like a little Game Boy type device. It has like 400 old Nintendo games on it. It was $13. The site was on, I think, Shopify where I could buy it. They're out of New York. So I knew that the site looked pretty legit because they're on Shopify. I know they're out of New York. They had their address and everything. And it was $13. So I was like, even if this thing doesn't work, what's the harm, right? But if you're trying to sell like a $250 course or, thousands of dollars worth of consulting services or whatever, you can't just come out of the gate and be like, buy now. It's ridiculous. It's a silly way to do this. So you have to really kind of start by building some awareness with them. So the way that I typically will do it is I think of, there's a post written by Avinash Kaushik called See, Think, Do. So that's See, Think, Do. See, Think, Do is a way of thinking about your audience in these three different kind of lenses. So here's basically how he described it. It's sort of like a See audience would be people who wear t-shirts, right? A Think audience would be people who wear t-shirts and are thinking about getting some new ones. And a Do audience are people who wear t-shirts, are thinking about buying a new one, and are actively looking to buy one. So it's about kind of the buying journey that people go through. And when I build it out in a funnel, I just phrase it in a different way. The first stage you kind of have to go through is the awareness. They need to know who you are before they're willing to buy. And they also need to know why you're the right option among the competing options. So consideration comes next, and then there's choice. So awareness, consideration, and choice. And you as a marketer, your job is to find them, convince them, and convert them. So to build awareness, you first have to find them and get in front of them. To have them consider you, you need to do a good job of convincing them why they should continue down in the funnel. And then at the choice phase where they're going to choose you, that's where you need to convert them. You need to make it really easy, remove all friction, and let them go through the entire process. So the only way that you can possibly do that is if you don't have a leaky funnel. You need this entire funnel to remain intact. Because if you're just going to do an awareness campaign that's isolated and disconnected from the consideration campaign, that's disconnected from the choice, you're just basically firing in a million different directions with no real consolidated strategy. What you need to do is you need to employ remarketing, because this allows you to actually take people from one stage to another. So if you show a video to people in the awareness stage, and then the people that watch that, you then tell them why you're different or better. And the people that looked at that, you then say, hey, fill out this form or download this thing or whatever. That's the way that you remove the leakage from your funnel. And once they come through, then there's always nurturing them and creating lookalike audiences of people who have gone through the funnel, and that fills the top of your funnel once again. So the idea is to really build this leakless type funnel. All right, so then that leads us into DMCASAS, which is what I call a dynamic, interactive, multi-campaign social advertising strategy. And the way that this works is, and we don't need that, every ad has to have a purpose when I run an ad. So very rarely will I just run a simple like ad by itself. It's only got one purpose, like to, maybe convert. I typically have multiple ads, and I definitely don't run things like brand awareness ads because they have no purpose. They're just getting in front of people, and I can't do anything with them after the fact. So instead, when you add in remarketing or retargeting, you allow every ad to have a purpose. And this is inside of the Facebook ad manager. You can go in there and you can create these inside of your custom audiences. So the customer file is your email list. Website traffic is website remarketing. People who have visited your website or a particular page or have been on for a duration of time on your website. App activity, as you know, is probably all the things to do with your applications. And then engagement, this is, I think, where the real power is. You've got your video remarketing. People have watched videos. People who have engaged with lead forms. The full screen experience, or formerly called Canvas. Those are typically like the conversion points. So you get people through the funnel. Maybe they open the canvas, but they don't actually convert. Remarketing to people who have opened but not converted. There's your Facebook page, your Instagram business profile, and then events. So if you are running a long enough campaign to get people to RSVP for an event, people who looked at it but didn't necessarily or who didn't respond in RSVP, you can remarket to them. So these remarketing audiences are a really great way to kind of stay in front of people. And maybe the first time you touch them, it was the wrong timing. So the remarketing allows you to stay in front of them. So this is actually I think the secret of it is that your funnel isn't actually a funnel. It's actually a web. All of the different pieces need to be able to connect to one another. And if you think of it like a funnel, it's a little too linear. So here's how it looks, is that you've got this hyper-targeted audience and you've got a brand video that you target at them. Then you're going to have those people who watch 10 seconds. You're going to show them an informational content ad. And then hopefully they visit the website. And if they visit the website, you remarket those people with a call to action. But at the same time, people watch 50% of the video, maybe you just bring them further down the funnel. And at the same time, bring them through the content and then, bring them further down. People who visited the website but didn't convert, remarket to them as well. So that's your awareness, consideration, and choice all in one place. But then you could also do an informational content ad at the beginning, which is kind of like awareness, consideration. And then the people who visited the website from that, you can remarket to them and bring them further down the funnel. Now you can add in things like search ads, public relations, any of the other things, any other remarketing on all these other sites like YouTube and Pinterest and Instagram and Twitter, LinkedIn and Twitter. All these sites can then become top of the funnel or bottom of the funnel, depending on the different options they have available. So this is how you build out what looks more like a web than it looks like a funnel, because once you have a system like this built, there's no kind of starting point and there's no ending point. It's just whoever touches you in any way whatsoever, they visit your website, they watch a video, they, whatever it is, whatever place that they first touch you that can be remarketed against, you bring them into this web and you just try and talk to them over time. All right. So this is what it looks like when you have a fully integrated marketing plan. So it can look very intimidating to look at something like this and not exactly know, what to do with it. But the idea is that this is what really truly integrated marketing looks like. This is when you have all of the different marketing options available to you. I've even got direct mail in there. So if you were to send direct mail to someone, the idea would be that the people that you send to the website, you can see there's a dotted line that goes around the truly integrated marketing, clicks to the website. So if you had a campaign of direct mail, you send people to a particular page on your website that's only for the direct mail campaign, you can now remarket to people who were part of your direct mail campaign and move them through the entire process. It gives you the ability to actually make direct mail something that becomes part of your campaign that's fully integrated. You can do that with guest blogs and podcasts. If you bring people to the website, PR, they have TV, radio, billboards, print, any of that. Your organic social media now has some sort of a value. Even though you can target Facebook and Instagram organically, most of the rest of these you can't really remarket to. But if you can get people to come to your website from any of those, you can remarket to them. But then similar to the kind of funnel that I just showed you before, if there were a starting point, it would be at the very far left, those video ads, right? So the Facebook and the Instagram video ad, you'll see they have a little box around them because they're a little different. What you're doing there is that you're actually able to remarket to the people who watch that video. You can see the little dotted lines to watches YouTube, watches Facebook. You can remarket to people who watch those videos. And then from there, you can take them through the rest of the funnel. This is what fully integrated marketing winds up looking like, where basically if somebody converts, then they become part of an audience and you're able to remarket to people, to them for things that are, nurturing them. And you're also able to remarket to people that are like them at the top of the funnel and start the whole process over again. Now we talked about how to set up these ads, how to build these ads, all the basics of all the structure of it. Really where you make your money is at this point is in optimization. So you can have the best and brightest idea out of the gate, but if you don't go through and continue to optimize these ads, you'll never get to that amazing point where you're returning like, $20, $30, $40, $50 per dollar that they put in. The only way you get to that point is if you can really, really, really narrow it down and get to only the right people. So I take kind of a Darwinistic approach to this whole thing. And this is a thing that clients will have a hard time with. So just kind of like gearing yourself up for this. So whether it's you running your own ads or whether you're dealing with a client, clients get like really attached to particular ideas, like a particular piece of creative or a video or, an image or something or a headline. And they'll think like, this is it. I am ruthless with my ads. I don't care about any of them. The only one I care about is the one that wins. So you have to have like a very like survival of the fittest type mentality to this whole thing. And you have to be able to adapt the language and you have to be able to adapt the images and do whatever it takes to bring those costs down so that you can maximize your return. You really have to be completely ruthless about it. My model is run 5, kill 3. So if I'm running a campaign, I'll run 5 ad sets in it and I'll kill 3 of them. I'll take the 2 best. If I'm running an ad set, I'll put in 5 ads and I'll kill 3. So it's run 5, kill 3 up the line. And that's how I go about running most of my campaigns is I'll run 5, kill 3. So in a situation like this where you have 2 ad sets, 5 ads in each, I will go about killing the 3 that perform the lowest. And that's where I go from there. If I have multiple ad sets, 5 ad sets with 5 ads in each, first I'll go through the ads and kill the ads in there. The kind of 3 lowest performing ones in each. Then I'll look through all the remaining winners and I'll pick the best ads, but I'll also go through the ad sets and do the same thing. Which are the best audiences? Which are the best ads? So I'll take those ads that were winning and I'll put them into the winning ad sets. And when you continue to optimize down like that, you're just getting better and better and better and better with it. And this is really about not having the attachment, right? So you can't love any ads. You have to just basically look at them all as tools. And never have the assumption going into it, like I'm only going to run a carousel because I know that carousels performed well in the last one, or I'm only going to target, men in this ad because I know men worked in the last one. In general, you want to test and constantly be challenging your own assumptions, or else you're going to put yourself in a position where you missed out on a big opportunity that you didn't even know was there. Now you dig into the ads, right? So once you've got some ad results coming back, then you want to start to go into the breakdown, which is inside of your ad insights, inside of the ad manager. And we'll go through this in a minute, but you click the little breakdown button and down in there by delivery, you have all these different awesome pieces of information that you can look at. And you can get down to the point where like maybe you started out with 18 to 60-year-olds in the Northeast of the United States, and that was your starting point. You might get to the point where you are able to say 18 to 24-year-old men who are in in New York, Washington, D.C., and Boston, who use Androids and Android tablets and on Instagram. And you might get to a point where like you were able to take what was a $14 conversion down to $1.50 because you did that. And then once you're targeting that group that is like, for some reason, that's the winner, and you pump all of your budget into the winner, the amount of return on that ad spend, it's like mind-boggling when you actually get a win on this sort of a thing. You can only do that by really going in and scouring and digging into all of the different data. And when you do this, you do it at each level, right? So you're going to look at campaigns this way. You're going to look at ad sets. And you're going to look at ads. I typically will start with ad sets, and then I'll go into the ads. So ad sets are usually kind of my starting point for the analysis, and then I go into the ads. And the only rule is that you're just going to keep refining. That is the only rule of how you do this, is you just keep looking for the best and the best and the best. Typically what I'll do is, even when I find a winner, I'll take the kind of like, I don't want to say loser, but between the two, like let's say I find like men and women I have in one ad set, and I find that women outperform men. I won't necessarily kill off the male ad set. I'll give it its own ad set, and maybe I'll reduce the budget to like an 80-20 sort of thing, where I'll put 80% of the budget into women, 20% into the men, and kind of monitor what's going on with the men to see if there's any reason to bring it back and add them back in. Or maybe you can narrow within the men to find one that's well working. The other thing is that anytime you're ruthless about these and you decide to kill one off, it's important to talk to the client or to think about the goals of your own campaign, because you might want to kill one off. Like let's say that you start to hit a diminishing return where you're spending $100 and you're getting a really great return, but as soon as you spend $150, the cost of those results start to decline. You may find that either you or your client is okay spending a little bit more. They're okay not getting the cheapest possible result. They're willing to spend a little bit more because they want market share. They want to actually grow and get more impressions in front of people. So, even though you're going to be ruthless about any of your optimization, you also want to make sure that you're doing it in service of whatever your business goal is. So if your goal is to achieve market share and increase sales, you may want to spend a little bit more for some of your conversions if it allows you to pick up additional market share. So it's worth thinking about. All right. So first steps / next steps is that anytime you're working on a campaign, first thing you're going to want to do, if you're working with a client, the first step you want to do before that is get Business Manager access. After that, you'll need to make sure all of the pixels are installed. You'll want to make sure you have all of your assets. You'll want to map out your funnel and set it up in sort of a Dimka SaaS methodology. And then once you start running those ads, you're going to optimize the crap out of them. My general rule is that I will spend the first generally 2 weeks to a month. It depends on how long we're planning to work together, a client of mine, but I will take 20% of their total budget and I'll just stuff it into the first like 2 weeks to a month. And I do that because I want to fail fast. I want to find out all of the campaigns that don't work. I want to find all of the loser ads that, are costing way too much per click. And I also want to find the winners, because if you do that at the beginning rather than going 6 months, spending twice as much as you need to, the results over the lifetime of your campaign are going to be that much better. So strongly advise, like, fail fast, spend the first 2 weeks just sucking and looking at what kind of results come back. Because the other thing is, let's say you run an ad and you find that people don't want to buy what you are selling, right? Like you have the ads out there, maybe you're driving traffic, it's really cheap, you're getting the video views, and then people come to your site and they don't buy anything. Well, that's a signal that you should look at and say, well, maybe I should reassess this. Maybe I need to make some website updates. Maybe there's a mismatch between what I'm saying in the ads versus what people see when they get there. Maybe I got to build a new page for this, et cetera, et cetera. So you want to be able to know that as early as possible and then be able to go back and learn from that and then fix whatever's broken. So always, test in the beginning, because you want to find out if you go through several tests and you find that like you're just not getting the results you want, it might just mean that this is not the campaign. Maybe people don't want you have to sell and it's not worth spending any more money in it. So it's really important to do the testing up front, optimize the crap out of it. And if no matter how hard you try, you're optimizing it and you're trying it and it's not working, you can either go back to the drawing board and create more content and different ads and things like that, try completely different audiences, or you can just say, hey, this is a loss. Let's just chalk it up as a loss. All right, so we're going to go into here. Let's go through a couple different things that are in here and that are useful. If you have an ad blocker on, it's going to make it really difficult to be inside any of these advertising tools. All right, so in a classic example of do as I say, not as I do, if you look at my ad results, you'll notice that they're not amazing. I mean, they're good. Like, my traffic's all right. Event response was a little high, but in general, my results are okay. But it's also partly because I don't drink my own Kool-Aid. So I don't do the work the same way, but we'll go through it in the same way. So get your campaigns, get your ad sets, get your ads. That's all basic. So let's go into here. I think they keep changing the look and feel of these things. It's annoying. Okay. So what we're going to do is go into the audiences. Now, audience insights. Okay. Audience insights is super freaking dope. Because what it does is it starts to give you a little bit of an idea of, based on an audience, what you can kind of come to expect of them. So you can do everyone on Facebook or you can do your own page. The thing is, if you do your own page, it's really important that you've built your audience the right way. Because if let's say you had a page and you've got 200 people on it, but 180 of them are just friends of yours, that's going to kind of skew your data. So we're just going to start here with the kind of new audience, right? So let's say you wanted to know people in South Carolina. You can start to like add a bunch of things in here. So like let's take okay, so we'll go with Real Housewives. Okay, so we've got people in South Carolina that like Real Housewives. You can see that the split on that, it's 92% women, 8% men. So it's a lot less men than women, 18 to any. You can start to see in these different age brackets kind of what's the likelihood. When the blue is higher than the gray, it means it's higher than the average on Facebook. So interestingly enough, South Carolina men, 35 to 44, are actually higher than all Facebook users of that same demographic. So 26% of the selected audience, 20% of Facebook users. So kind of interesting there. So what you're looking for here are these kind of blue over gray kind of situations, which is kind of nice. Anytime you see under it, it means it's less than the average Facebook user. So what you're looking for are these sort of the points where things go a little bit over, because not in this case. Like, so for instance, like legal services right here, got 2% versus 1%, it's 100% more. Like, that doesn't really help you. But on these kind of longer bars, that can sometimes be something worth looking at. So it's more likely that they're in administrative services, or that they're in sales, or that they're in management, or that they're in these different sort of categories. The one that I like to look at, I think this is probably the most important as an advertiser, is if you go to activity, you'll see here ads clicked. So this is based upon the number of ads, like the amount of ads that they've clicked, I believe it's in the last 30 days, versus average people on Facebook. So if you find that the audience you're targeting is more likely to click on an ad, that's a good thing, right? And what's interesting is when you get to this little activity thing here, what you can then do is start playing with the age and the gender, right? So if we switch it to just women, how does that change it? A little bit higher. Switch to men, lower, right? So you know that the women age right here is going to be a better audience, more likely in South Carolina who like housewives to click an ad. Okay. So then we take the age and let's say that we want to check 18 to 29, 38%. And if we change that instead to 50 to 65 plus, 50, right? So you can see that the age begins to change it. So now you're like, okay, well, if I'm, and I'm just using it, it's a stupid example to use Real Housewives, but point being is that if you try to find, if you break down an audience that you're looking at and then you go through it and start to play with these different features, maybe add additional interests or let's see, in here you've got like relationship status. You can say like single women, like is that more or less? I guess it's not showing that. Education, college. Does that show us? Yeah. So college, potentially more likely grad school. All the same, that's weird. So anyway, you can go through these different things and it'll start to tell you if the audience that you're after is more likely to click on ads. And then what you want to do in your advertising campaigns is you probably want to skew more heavily towards the ones who have clicked on an ad more so in the past. You also get a sense of whether or not there's a real need for you to do placement targeting. So in the ad sets, it's going to ask you like if you want to target specific devices. You may find that, like one of these is like wildly above, like let's say feature phone was wildly available. You might want to change your strategy based upon that, right? And then same thing here, desktop, mobile, et cetera. So this will give you a sense of whether or not it makes sense to target a particular type of device. The other thing is page likes can be really helpful because it can show you similar interests. So South Carolina FYI or South Carolina living. So some of these can be really helpful when you put in these different categories. You can see things that people are also interested in. News and politics are usually an interesting one. You may find some really interesting things there, and really begin to like kind of look in, like obviously Bravo. That's a pretty obvious one. Yeah. So public figures. Yeah. So this is just something you can look through and start to build out kind of new interest categories, because when you sit down and talk to a client or when you even think about your own business, you say like, okay, well, tell me about your audience. Most businesses will go, I think we typically work with, I'd say, I guess women between the ages of 35 and 50 who are married. And you're like, okay, well, what do they like? You're like, I don't know. So if you can start to go through maybe their Facebook page or their Twitter or anything like that and start to look at their audience and get a better sense of who they are, then you can start to learn more about what they like and start building out some audiences to test things. Like you might find that like Discover South Carolina is like a hotbed of activity to engage the people that you're trying to. Like let's say you had a new show that you were releasing on YouTube that was like a Real Housewives show. This would be a great way of doing your sort of your due diligence to figure out who should I be targeting about this. Like I know Housewives, but like what else? And you might find that like some of these are much better for bringing in the right people than others. Another thing that's worth looking at is actually looking at your pixel and looking at what sort of activity is happening, which if Facebook will actually let me look at that. Okay, cool. All right, there you go, pixels. Okay, so you can break this down by URLs, data source, domain. Typically, unless your pixels on multiple sites, domain's probably going to be useful. But URLs, what's cool about this is that you can start to get a sense of like what are the pages where you have the biggest opportunity to remarket to people. So, for instance, I just released this podcast episode about Hope Timberlake, and it was an episode about women in leadership. So, I'm about to release another episode about women in leadership. I could potentially take this one and having 207 total events where that hit, I could then remarket to that. I could also look down here for 116. I had an episode with Melanie Diesel and we talked a little bit about, content marketing and also being a mother and going back to work and things like that. So I could potentially join those two together if they were bigger numbers, that is. So being able to go through this gives you some idea of kind of what's happening on your website. And you can look back in total amount of time. So that's another place that's worth looking at to determine, like, is there an opportunity here? This is also important when you start to create your remarketing audience. If that number isn't above 1,000, it's probably not going to be really worth it because it's not enough people. So just worth looking at there. And then what else? Catalog manager, I believe that's where you're going to put all of your, in a catalog ad. This is where you're going to like generally connect it. It'll give you the opportunity to connect to like Shopify or BigCommerce, Magento, WooCommerce, etc. And it'll ask you to like assign it to like the different account and all that sort of good jazz. So if you wind up doing any product catalog ads, it happens in there. And then that's basically it. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's the basics of it all.
Hey everybody, I hope you really enjoyed that course and you get a lot out of it. Please, as you implement these different ideas and you go through the material that was in this course and use it for yourself or your clients, please let me know of any success stories that you've had. If you find yourself getting stuck, again, please shoot me an email at this address right here. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning of this course, I didn't have time to go through and explain how YouTube, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Reddit, Quora, Snapchat, how all of these different ads work separately from Facebook and Instagram, but I can assure you that the principles of how to run these successful ads are relatively the same. You have to be ruthless about your ads and not have any attachment to any of them. You need to consistently be testing, always be testing, and I think that the Run 5 Kill 3 methodology works really nicely across virtually every site that I have tried it. Now you're going to have a variety of different options that are available to you on different sites, but the same idea, the same principles of A/B testing and letting ads compete against each other and testing every possible variable from the headline to the cover image and all those sorts of things are going to be the real secret sauce. You need to optimize these ads down until you get to the point where you are relatively certain that it's either a good idea or not a good idea to be running these ads, but also when it is a good idea that you are relatively certain that you've boiled it down to the absolute best combination of different things. And a good ad should be able to run for a while. This idea of ads going stale, it's not really as much a thing. If you have a really good ad, you should be able to run it for a pretty decent amount of time. I had a client where we ran an ad campaign for about 2 years, and after optimizing and optimizing and optimizing it, that's when we were able to finally get it up to a return on ad spend of 48. Can you imagine returning $48 to a client for every dollar they spend? It was pretty amazing. So please go forth, implement all of these ideas, and if you find yourself in a position where you need a little bit more help, I'm trying not to take on too many clients where I do the social ads for them, but in certain examples or certain situations I would be open to it. So again, just email me and we can talk about it. Alternatively, if the graphic of the truly integrated marketing caught your eye, where you're building a machine behind the scenes where everything works together and you have remarketing that works with your public relations campaigns, your direct mail, your TV, radio, print, your search advertising, etc. That is something strategically that I am very excited to show clients and work on. So if that is something you're interested in, that's something I'm definitely happy to get involved with and talk more about. So shoot me an email and I'm happy to talk to you about it. I hope you got a tremendous amount out of this course. I assure you that the methodology in this course works. Without a question, it works. And if you're finding that your ads are not working, it is not the methodology, it is the fact that maybe somebody does not want what you have to sell, or maybe you have to go back through and optimize further to find the right combinations of creative or audience, or maybe it's the objective that you need to change. But one way or another, if you take this approach of letting ads compete against each other and you keep testing to find the right combination of variables, you will inevitably succeed. So I hope you learned a lot about it. Please email me your success stories. I would love to hear about them, and I will see you in another lesson at another time. Thanks.